Before we begin our presentation, we both would like to take the time to acknowledge that the University of Saskatchewan is situated on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another.
Through both our experiences in sport, we have found that it is an opportunity for individuals to be a part of a community, but also an alternative classroom. Sports offer a solution to achieve inclusion, as well as bringing different communities together to celebrate the love of the game being played. We have lacrosse as our focal point while we discuss sports for truth and reconciliation.
Throughout our research, we were pleased to find rich information about how sport can be utilized as a decolonization strategy, much of which strengthened our initial ideas. Additionally, we learned about many different efforts that are already happening across our country and around our globe today. Let's dive in. The game of lacrosse provides a strong angle to recognize this parallel between sport and truth and reconciliation. The creator's game, as it's traditionally referred to, was given to the Six Nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy by the creator as a medicine game, teaching humility, perseverance, strength, and agility.
It was a game played within the many Haudenosaunee communities, and its purpose was to bring the people from these communities together to learn from one another and celebrate their coexistence. They believed lacrosse was a sacred game bestowed upon them by the Creator to build fellowship among the people. Subsequently, the celebrations that occurred in conjunction with the game were highly social.
When the colonizers showed up on scene, the game initially reinforced the stigma of Indigenous people as savages. Then, like all other things stolen, so was lacrosse. During the 17th century, French colonizers renamed it from the Ojibwe name Bagataway to lacrosse and changed the rules to create a gentleman's game banning Indigenous athletes from rosters.
Later, lacrosse leagues went Ivy League, and the athletes of Canadian and American teams became predominantly white. But Indigenous communities now see potential for the sport to help prevent depression, obesity, and diabetes, and to offer youth a shot at scholarships to college and university. Beginning with the youngest generation, Indigenous athletes are reclaiming Canada's national sport.
In 2015, the Standing Buffalo First Nation in Saskatchewan didn't have enough money to register its youth lacrosse teams. In response, 80 residential school survivors of the nation donated their $3,000 compensation packages for a generous donation of $240,000 to the lacrosse program. What a clear demonstration that this community saw the investment in sport for their youth.
Lacrosse has been hailed as saving Indigenous lives. In February 2000, 6 children committed suicide in Gugluktuk, Nunavut. Russ Shepard, a teacher, moved from Saskatchewan and started the stay-in-school Grizzly lacrosse program. He demanded that his players maintain an 80% class attendance record and boosted the school's overall attendance from 20% to nearly 100% rapidly.
The future of lacrosse is brighter than ever for Indigenous youth. Today, the National Lacrosse League has over 30 Indigenous players. Here is Jeremy Thompson, number 74 for the Saskatchewan Rush, who says, "It's about playing that game and playing it for a purpose much bigger than us. For us, it's about playing the game for the Creator, and for us back in our hometown, it's like a medicine to our people." The works of decolonizing through lacrosse are evident. However, we wondered about other sports, especially those of colonial origins such as hockey, which came as a result of the cultural appropriation of lacrosse. Hockey itself was a much broader process of colonization. It was a common practice of European colonizers to forcibly replace Indigenous forms of physical activity with European ones.
On the flip side, we found this. I owe my survival to hockey. I could have been found dead on the street in Edmonton on Skid Row because of alcohol. So it's really strong for me, the influence of hockey in my life, says Little Child, who attended Emerson Residential School for 14 years. He was abused physically and sexually there, but went on to play varsity hockey at University of Alberta, where he studied law. Little Child believes highlighting the history of hockey at residential schools is one more step on a path toward reconciliation. I'm looking at the hockey community to join us again. We had this rich history together, through residential schools. Let's lift it up and say we can do it together to make it better for youth who are in the communities now who don't have a chance to participate.
Little Child later went on to found the North American Indigenous Games Council, whose vision was to improve the quality of life for Indigenous peoples by supporting self-determined sports and cultural activities which encourage equal access to participation in the social, cultural, spiritual fabric of the community in which they reside and which respects Indigenous distinctiveness. Here's another story. Kendall Nutmaker grew up on Sweetgrass First Nation of Saskatchewan and experienced many barriers to participating in sport. That was until his friend's parents offered to pay his soccer fees and provide transportation. This led to a college volleyball scholarship, and now his award-winning company ECUR gives generously to help underprivileged kids play sport.
Here's a grant program that works to implement organized sport to increase opportunities for youth in rural, on-reserve, isolated, and northern communities of Saskatchewan. Their vision is to support communities to promote quality of life through sport, culture, and recreation, and their mission is to provide leadership and support by building bridges and partnerships while doing so. The value of Indigenous sport continues to grow. The University of Alberta offers a graduate certificate in partnership between the Faculty of Kinesiology, Sport and Recreation, and Faculty of Native Studies. The focus of the graduate certificate is the health and well-being of Indigenous people through sport and recreation.
While using the example of lacrosse and learning of other stories and different programs and grants has shown us ways that sport can be used in decolonizing efforts, we know much more research needs to be done before claiming that sport in its entirety is decolonizing.
It remains interesting to explore other colonial aspects in other sports around the world. Reflecting on the framework of lacrosse and its gift for bringing communities together, sport also offers the opportunity as a political and social justice platform. Athletes now are using these opportunities to be advocates and bring light to the inequities in our societies. This may offer a new direction to our research of sport as decolonizing strategy.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our presentation on sport as a decolonizing strategy. It was a pleasure working with all of you this semester, and we look forward to learning from your presentations and from each other as we carry on as advocates and allies towards decolonizing our world and bringing peace for all.